Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, we summarize an AgWeb article on the 6 Secrets to 80 Bushel Soybeans by Dr. Bushel from the University of Illinois. Ben shares new Merschman PowerCore Enlist corn yield data showing how competitive our hybrids are in the marketplace from a yield perspective. And Dylan shares his experience at the Iowa Ag Expo.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars. We have Ben, Dylan, and Lynn, and I believe Lynn's going to start first.
Yeah, so read an article this week that was pretty interesting on AgWeb, the Farm Journal, and it was discussing a new program that Dr. Bushel at the University of Illinois has come out with. Basically, to kind of surmise it a little bit, I think the Illinois Soybean Association had requested that he do something very similar to what he had done with his 10 Wonders of Corn, basically the race to 300 bushel corn and getting it consistently. They asked him to do the same thing with soybeans and how to get to 80 bushel soybeans. So that article gives some some insights, and always with Dr. Bushel, some fun anecdotes and stories that come with it. He's a very fun person to listen to, but at the end of the day, very sound agronomic practices that almost every single farmer can take advantage of in the race to 300 bushel corn, or in this case 80 bushel soybeans. So just wanted to hit the 6 secrets here, and then do a quick glance through them, and then we can discuss a little bit individually on it. But number one, they said weather accounts for 30 bushels in the 80 bushel soybean yield. Genetics are another 30. Row spacing can account for 7. Foliar protection account for 6. Fertility account for 5, and then seed treatment accounts for 2. And this is in his university studies there. So a little bit with the weather. Obviously, that's a pretty important one when it comes to soybeans, especially on the back end when we talk with Phil, and he found that to be very important as well, just adding more weight to soybeans, how that enhances the yield. When it comes to genetics, I'm going to take it a step further than him. Starting with the most robust yield potential is obviously very important. When it comes to us, we feel very fortunate with our MS Technologies connections that we're able to get that genetic potential to the highest in our offerings. And then he takes it into basically talking about varieties, that there is, there's kind of a common sentiment, I guess, with soybeans is that you can, put a soybean out and it'll yield what it'll yield. And there is, and we see it, we feel very confident that our reps and the knowledge that we have with our products, we can place soybeans just like we place corn. I think soybeans do afford you a little bit more consistency when you get them maybe in an area that is not the top end yield potential for that particular variety. There's just a level of comfort knowing that your floor basically is set very high. But if you wanted to get that 5, 6, 7, 10 plus bushel, we could place soybeans on different yield environments and be able to take that to the next level. So 100% agree with that. Row spacing, in his studies, what he has found that, and we've heard it before, the earlier you plant, the less dependent on row spacing is for a yield enhancement. He did mention about April planted soybeans again being very early, trying to get that extra node. More vegetative growth to get that node on there.
And Lynn, the reason why the earlier you plant, the more important is basically for a soybean, if you can have the rows closed by the longest day of the year, you're at maximum sunlight interception.
Yep.
And that's the key. So that's why when you get later, you plant narrower.
Yep.
So.
And his study, and I'd be curious if they're going to take it a step further. They only did to basically match up with their equipment 30 and 20s. Nothing with 15s, which seems to be for our target audience that we talk to, that 15s and 30s tend to be the most common spacing. Not a lot of 20s that we deal with, but I get it from their perspective. They got to deal with the equipment that they have. But earlier you are, the less advantageous the narrow row spacing. The later you are, they did find that obviously narrow row spacing, higher population, was key to be able to maintain that. And that's back to that. What we're trying to get is the most nodes per square foot. So as we're not going to be able to potentially get more vegetative growth and more node potential, as you get later, you have to add more plants to get that. So,
and that's where, your different maturities, again, back to what I said earlier, just to clarify a little bit, when the soybean starts to flower, which is typically towards the when the days start shortening up, that's when you want to have your rows closed. So whenever you plant, when you first see your soybeans starting to flower, if you do not have your rows closed, you're basically wasting that sunshine, and that's basically a solar collector is what you got out there. Is that fair to say,
Yep.
Ben?
Yeah.
And so then moving on to foliar protection, obviously they're going to be proponents of making sure that no disease pressure is taken away from the yield potential. So insecticide, fungicide applications. Obviously there's some IPM stuff that goes along with that, but definitely seeing a yield increase from protecting that foliar from a foliar standpoint. The fertility piece is something that I think most guys actually need to take a look at in this article and take a look. What they had found, and I thought was interesting, is that the earlier you plant, your fertilizer load doesn't necessarily need to be as high, because it gives that plant a little bit more time to kind of collect that, the phosphorus and potash, or phosphorus and potassium in particular, into the leaves and be able to store that. So the earlier you plant, the more that plant is able to take in over a longer period of time. It doesn't necessarily require as much versus where you're later, and the plant's kind of think it needs to play catch up, and it's really taking in the nutrients. But for sure, your potash levels are going to be extremely important for high yielding soybeans. That's the tends to be what we see as the yield limiting factor, is they're just not being fed enough from that side. And then also with nitrogen, as you get into that higher yield level, you do have to provide that plant the ability to either scavenge for more nitrogen or have some supplemental nitrogen out there to be able to do that.
Or make its own with a good inoculant.
Correct. So yeah, the fertility standpoint, and I think that's one, as we had discussions and talking with Peter, there's still folks in the industry that call them poverty peas. So if you want to take your beans to the next level, that 2-year fertilizer, if you're doing it ahead of corn, maybe it's time. We had an opportunity there. We'll see what the tariffs play out with potash, but it could be a decent time to get out there and at least experiment a little bit with some potash application before your soybeans to see if you can move that needle. And the last one is seed treatment, and at 2 bushels, they find an advantage there. And I think that one, it's probably an okay rule of thumb. Obviously, there is more that comes to seed treatment than they're probably able to talk about. But with ours, we've seen the replicated data. We get all the information from all of our test plots. We know it's far more than that. So not to brag and not to be maybe a little bit conceited, but I feel like all of our customers have the opportunity, from what he's talked about, to be there. Our genetic potential is there. Our seed treatment is there. I think on the seed treatment side alone, we have the ability to be even higher than 2 bushel. So if you're interested, we're definitely going to post a link to this. Read his comments. There's far more that goes into that in discussion, but obviously a good nugget there. And if you haven't listened to any Dr. Bilow's presentations, I highly recommend it. Not your standard monotonous, sometimes ag presentations. There's always a flair of humor and insightful knowledge mixed in there. So,
and I would say too, as you're kind of thinking about the row spacing and variety you're choosing, even if you're going to be planting earlier, maybe in 30s, I'm just thinking through my head right now of maybe some of the varieties, even if you're going early, maybe try and stay away from 30s just because of the plant structure. We're talking about maximizing sunlight and getting that row closed. There's just varieties that might not potentially work in that area. So keep that in mind too as you're kind of going through, whether you're in 30s or you're going to be early, or take that into consideration too.
Yeah, and to put even a finer point on that, the most narrow line product we have in our lineup right now is the Lincolns. I can't really distinguish a heck of a lot further. We had Super Bush products like our old Chickasaw. That's not available, but a lot of our products will work both directions. But you are correct. If you're not in 15s, I don't tell guys to shy away from the Lincolns, but I tell them, take a look at this. I mean, expect to see this when you're going to go out and plant them for sure.
But then like this past year, the Lincolns, we had multiple guys with 30 intro beans with the Lincoln, and they did fantastic. Right. So it's so hard to tell. We wish we could tell you, but we always want to be thinking ahead of potential weather and what the springs are going to bring, and that's just something to really kind of key on. So
yeah, and with that weather aspect too, and I forgot to mention this, but it kind of plays within the genetics and the weather both. But if you are not planning a maturity package or spreading out your risk through maturities, definitely take a look at that. What they had found was the more fuller season beans tend to bring a little bit more kick on that yield component. I think I'd have to forgive me for not knowing the exact number, but I mean there was like a almost 30 bushel range between a 2.2 to a 4.4, I think is what they were testing in that. So obviously from a harvest management standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. And then also here, from the genetic potential plus then the time potential and use of weather here locally. We discussed it on the way home and talked with some folks at the Power Show as well. Typically, our fullest season beans are never as bad as the medium season. So, like for here, the Kennedy, the Monroe, and we're talking like an Austin or a Denver. But in years where we maybe have some heat stress late and then catch some August, September rains, it could be up to, this year was a 12 to 15 bushel advantage on those the more fuller season beans. Obviously, you got to be able to manage that, but definitely make sure that you are looking at full season beans in your portfolio if you haven't already.
Yeah, we talked with a grower yesterday at the Iowa, used to be called Farm Power Show. Now
Ag Expo.
Yep, now it's called the Iowa Ag Expo.
In Des Moines, right?
Yep, in Des Moines. And he was talking about how he planted both Eisenhower's and McKinley's, I believe. And the Eisenhower's on every single plant had at least 22 nodes per plant. And on some of the McKinley's, he was down in that 19, 20 range. So that plant stopped growing, and it was considerable. The McKinley still did very well from him, but I think there was like an 8 or 9 bushel yield difference between the Eisenhower's and the McKinley's because, you got a little bit fuller season, you got a little bit longer time to stack those additional nodes. And if I remember my math correctly, it's like 3.8 days per node or something like that. Mm-hmm. So if you're figuring 3 to 4 days per node, that math comes out when you're looking at a 3.2 versus a 3.9. So it's all about risk assessment, and Bushel is one of the best to listen to when it comes to exciting yield pushing topics, corn and soybeans. So that kind of brings into what I wanted to show for this week, and we've highlighted a little bit of this, but believe it or not, even though we are post January 15th timeframe, we've actually sold a lot of corn the past 2 weeks. A lot of corn, which is awesome, and it's very exciting. So I kind of wanted to keep that momentum moving and highlight a couple of our products.
And some of the things going on too. The substitutions are starting to show up too, and some farmers aren't. They said, "No, I'm not taking your seconds. I'm going to go to Merschman's and take their first." So, and we have supply. So
that's absolutely correct. This first page that we're looking at here is going to be 112 to 119 day range, and this is data that comes from our originators. So we have 38 different locations as I'm checking out this data. If you check that out there, the 2512 C-30, there's 3 different seed treatments that they use. That's why it was in the test 3 different times. And that product went 108, 107, and 105% of test average. So you got 38 locations in all of these tests, and we're averaging 279, 276, 271 respectfully there as we're looking at this, and we'll have this chart pulled up so guys can look at it. But that 112 day is competing against DeKalb 6999, that's 119 day. We have 6744, that's 117 day. Pioneers 117 day. At 1742 Chrome, that's a big product in the industry. DeKalb 6422, Pioneer 1563, and then we roll into our 113 day right there following some of those. So we have some really heavy, high power hitters in the fullest season, and my 2 personally favorite products that we have in our lineup are our 112 and 113 day because of their versatility and their ability to go in mirroring environments. I think there's a lot of horsepower when it comes to that 112, 113 day. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that the 2415 and the 2414, both first generation PowerCore products that we would have launched 3 years ago for the first time, we are still keeping up and outrunning DeKalb 6595. That's like one of their cornerstone products in the market. And we're bouncing on both sides of that product with either one of those, and we're still outrunning 6618, which is 116 day, and 6465, which is 114 day. So from a full season perspective, even though we don't have 116, 117, 119 day products, we are still competing, and we have the horsepower that we need with the 2512C and the 2413C when it comes to the fullest of seasons.
So drier corn, harvest early, and get the same yield or better, not a bad deal.
Right. We move into the 109 to 114 day realm. 2512C still on top. The 2411 starts to peek its head in there at 102.85% over test average. And then we get another huge product coming out of the DeKalb lineup is on 11135. So our 112, 111 day products are outrunning that product fairly handily. I mean, we're 1% to 3% better there. We can see some of the experimentals that we're going to be looking at next year are bouncing around in here as well. But the 2413, again, C-30 is very respectable against 1212 or 1222 is a Pioneer product that's in there as well. So take a look at that data. If that interests you at all, and then we'll get into the early side just a little bit. It looks like we snuck the 112 day in on the earlier side. It is number one yet again. We just barely squeaked out a nice 1% higher percent yield over Pioneer 1027. If you know that product, the Pioneer 1027 did extremely well in the first trials. It looks like from a moisture perspective between the two, and when we're looking at a moisture percentage between the 1027 and the 2512, you're looking at our product at 20% moisture versus 20.3 versus 19, so 1% difference. But we're still squeaking out a nice little win there. The 2411C-30 still comes right in the middle of the pack there. Still competing extremely well with 11135, 0924, 0953. 1185 is a big product for that camp. 1197 used to be the king, and coming out of the Pioneer camp, we're doing very, very well there. And then you look at the earliest of offerings that we have, and the 2506 and 2408 look extremely solid when it comes to the earliest products that we have to offer. So when we're comparing them to 0622, 0720Q out of Pioneer, or there's some 105 day DeKalb in here as well as you take a look at this. I'm not going to be the one that comes out, and Joe Joe and I have a little bit differing opinion. I'm not going to be the one that comes out and says that we're going to win every single time. But when you put the package together, whether that be the 108, in our area, it would be like 108, 111, 112, 113. If we can put 4 products together and you put our 4 products against somebody else's, a competitive 4 products, I'm going to tell you that our products are going to be as good, if not slightly better, than what the competition is. And if you plant the package and you put your trust in Merschman seeds, I honestly think that these PowerCore numbers are some of the best corn hybrids that are on the market. We met with our one of our Corteva rep actually, and he says
on the trait side,
from a trait perspective, he was talking how the number of PowerCore from an independent perspective and from an industry perspective is just going to be huge. And you got to think that we've been dealing with this for the past 3 years. We know, 3 years worth of in-field experience with the 111 day, the 114 day, 115 day. We had a lot of experience with the 112 and 113 the past 2 years. If you think about that experience and the placement that we are going to have, the placement knowledge that our sales reps have and that we have from working with these products, we are ahead of the competition when it comes to knowing where and how these products work and knowing how competitive they are in the marketplace from a yield perspective.
In looking at the data, they would have similar seed treatments on it, and we actually put a superior seed treatment on our corn that you're actually going to plant. So I would anticipate that the spreads that you gave, Ben, are real numbers, but in the reality, we could be a little bit higher out in the field because of the robust seed treatment package we put on as compared to testing.
Yes. So I'm extremely excited. If guys don't have all their corn acres locked up, I highly encourage guys to give this a look, whether you're a smaller farmer and it's 12 bags, or if you're a larger farmer and you do things by the box. Guys need to take a look at a certain percentage of their acres to be looking at these products. So
and we're very competitively priced too, so we might be able to save you some money too.
Right. We have non-GMO options available for the 2413 and the 2512. We still have supply of each one of those. I'm not going to say that's going to last through the end of the year or through the end of the selling season, beginning of planting season, but we have those available as well, and those are starting to move right now as well. So we have supply of every hybrid. Things are good. I took a big bet or a big position on these PowerCore numbers, anticipating large amounts of growth. We have large amount of growth, but we're still waiting and ready for the guys that are willing to come on board and give this a try, because it's going to be a good thing for the grower at the end of the day.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, that point you made with the 112 in particular, that and it goes true with the 11 and 13 too, but it's a great early season option, it's a great end zone option, and it's a phenomenal late or early option. Just a lot of versatility, and we've seen that ourselves, like you said, to be able to place that. And I think that is something that corn is very important in. And I think a point that to add on to, when we're talking about our reps in the field, we also know where to not put it.
Correct.
And I think that sometimes some companies in particular, if they've got a one-trick pony or a two-trick pony, they just want to get it out there. They want to put it out there. They just have to get the volume out there, and they'll put something in a position that won't succeed.
I've heard that story so much. I've been doing meetings a long time, and the rep gets up there and, well, this one here belongs on 40% of your acres. This one here belongs on 20% of your acre. I go, no, that's not the way you sell corn. You put the right hybrid for the field, and it works out to the percentages the way it works out. But yeah, I agree with you on that, Lynn.
Yeah, it is. To your point, I mean, I think there's some companies that have a good portfolio, and everyone probably has one or two really, really good corn hybrids. But I think from an industry standpoint, we're very unique in that we can put together 4, if not 5, depending on your maturity zone, of products that the only thing you're probably going to be disappointed in is that you don't have enough grain bin storage.
Mm-hmm. Build a bin at the same time you plant them, right?
Exactly.
Dylan, do you any news from the Iowa Farm Show or anything you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, so we had the Iowa Ag Expo, like we kind of mentioned. That was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week in Des Moines. We had to battle a little weather coming home Wednesday, but each day we had lots of conversations with potential customers, current customers, dealers, stopping in to say hi about products, where we're going as a company in the future, and the corn was really a big talk, at least on Wednesday. They want to know what was coming, what we're doing. That's going to be a standout in the industry. We've just got done talking about it with the yield packages that we have, the kind of the yield it's going to bring to the table. It really gets guys thinking, and you can't leave out soybeans because they always want to know what's going to beat this certain variety, and it's always good to talk about.
That's good.
Same conversations Lynn and I had.
Yep. I think the one that was kind of interesting that I got a few times and related to what's behind Joe and Ben there, a lot of biological companies set up there and advertising, and just a lot of noise. So once again, we have Merschman offerings here. We know what we got. We have a great group behind us provided that knowledge and information, but a lot of people out there making noise in that industry. So definitely investigate it, as we've talked about, see what works for you, and work with people that you trust and providing good products.
Okay. Anything else to add? Okay. Well, before I get into my jokes, I wanted to mention, last week we talked about, the old timers theory that when you see your first dead skunk in the middle of the road, you'll be planting corn in like 6 to 8 weeks. Well, I got 5 calls on a dead skunk north of West Point. So we've seen our first one, but we're seedsmen, so we typically like to see multiple locations and multiple data before we say we're going to be planting corn in 6 to 8 weeks. So anyhow, thank you everyone that called in that report, and we appreciate it. Before I get into my jokes, Dylan's birthday's today, Saturday, so happy birthday, 22.
Yep, thank you.
Same as Caitlin Clark, and there's a Taylor Swift song too, right?
That's right.
Big day, okay. So this weekend, big weekend, right? Super Bowl weekend, right?
Yep.
I'm going to give you a little fact before I get into my jokes. This is no joke. And I say, why do farmers love the Super Bowl? You ever thought about that? Did you even know farmers love the Super Bowl? Well, did you know after Thanksgiving, the Super Bowl is the highest day for food consumption in the United States? Great day to be a farmer. So if you're a farmer, you need to celebrate Super Bowl in a couple different ways, okay? Anyhow, anybody want to know what team I might be for in the Super Bowl? What color is this? I'm going red, okay? Now, and of course, Kansas City's close to us, so I always go for the team that's the closest to where I live. So I'm going red all the way. So
Big Taylor Swift fan.
No, I've been red this election too, and everything else in between. So we're going red. We're staying with Merschman red. We'll see what happens. All right, here's the jokes. These are all Super Bowl jokes, okay? What did the ref say to the fan who was upset with the call? No reference to Kansas City here, okay? Okay. It was a really funny thing. I saw a social media thing where a guy says, I'm breaking down. I'm going to buy my Chiefs jersey. So he gets the box, he opens it up, and it's a referee's jersey. I thought that was pretty funny. Anyhow, if anybody's watching the game, they know what reference I'm talking here to. Anyhow, what did the ref say to the fan who was upset with his call? Intentional frowning is not allowed here. Intentional grounding, intentional frowning. Okay. Why did the psychiatrist love football players? Why do psychiatrists love football players? Because they always tackle their problems head on. Why do football players never wear glasses in the Super Bowl? You ever think about that? Because it's a contact sport. Okay? Ben almost smiled on that one. Where do Super Bowl contenders get their uniforms for the big game? You ever wonder where they get their uniforms for the big game? New Jersey, okay? And the last one, thank God, what do you say to a guy who wears a parka at the Super Bowl party? What do you say to a guy who wears a parka at the Super Bowl party? Talk about man coverage. Again, that's a defense reference. Okay, I better quit. Anyhow.
We'll explain it to Ben afterwards.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And anyhow, so thanks for watching today. We hope your family is healthy and safe. We'll see you next week.